Welcome to Chapter 2B. In this segment, we'll give you a quick overview of a processed HDX project and show you how to evaluate your results to start drawing meaningful insights. Let's take a look.
All right, this is a fully processed project. The project is a 4 time point project in 2 protein states. We have a drug-bound state and a control state. Each condition has 3 replicates, so this is a total of 24 data files. The total amount of processing time that this took for roughly 700 peptides, it took about half an hour. So 700 peptides, 24 files is half an hour. All right. So what are we seeing here? So the first view that will appear in the center of the screen is a result summary. The result summary will give you a rough idea whether the processing was successful or not. And by successful, what I mean is whether the data, the HDX data itself, is usable. For example, if there were any data files that were, let's say, compromised, perhaps there were signal issues in the mass spec files, or perhaps retention time shifts that were affecting the data negatively, you would see that the number of accepted peptides in the end out of those 700 would be near none, like 0, for example. But in this case, what you're seeing here are peptides that are accepted in all conditions, peptides that are accepted in some conditions, and by conditions we mean a single time point in a single state. So for example, 252 peptides pass every single time point in every state in this project, and 174 of them pass some of the time points and conditions, whereas 278 peptides are not usable in this project for measuring deuteration. Other than the total number of peptides, there are a few other stats you can see. When we mention peptide measurements, they refer to a peptide in a single file. So a peptide measurement is one run, one peptide. And you can see the amount of peptide measurements that passed or failed. There is even a count for EX1 versus EX2 type of measurements. In this case, this project, we turned off the feature to allow EX1 automatically, and we do have one manual adjustment for an EX1 measurement. On the bottom here, we have the error, the percent D2O, percent deuteration error, or standard deviation in MS1 and in MS2 data, as well as on the final set, which could be a combination of MS1 or MS2 data. That will be explained once we take a look at a peptide. On the other section of the general stats, we have statistics to describe how well our fragmentation and DIA space went. So, for example, if the fragmentation was poor, the number of quantifiable fragments or the number of fragments per peptide would be really low. So this is another indicator of the success, the relative success, the top-down global success of the HDX project would appear in these statistics here. In this case, 9 fragments per peptide is quite good for most of your peptides. That's actually a very good number of fragments. As well as the fit p-value of the fragments, closer to 1 means it's a better fit. The percent D error, that would be described a bit later, where this number is coming from, the mass error for each fragment, and so on. Some of these stats are also described in these histograms. For example, the mass error that we saw here is described in the peptide level and on the fragment level, as well as the peptide length, the fragment length, the number of fragments per peptide, the fragment intensity. And finally, on the bottom left here, we have a box that describes why some of the peptide measurements have failed. And these are the reasons why some of them have failed. Of course, there's a lot of failed peptides because the original peptide list that we input here was completely unfiltered. So there could have been false positives, junk peptides. Those will never make it into the final calculations because they'll be rejected for one reason or another. These reasons here are also found in the peptide table. Whenever you see a peptide in the peptide table that has what we call flags, The flags will describe the reason for why that peptide was rejected or that peptide measurement. These are the same reasons that are displayed in this table here as an aggregate.
Now that you know how to evaluate your processed results, it's time to explore all the powerful tools HDX Pro offers to visualize and refine your data. In Chapter 3, we'll dive into the many ways you can view, analyze, and manipulate your HDX results to get the most out of your experiment. Let's continue.